For nearly 30 years, people born between 1976 and 1985 lived in a generational no man's land. Gen X didn't quite claim them, and Millennials didn't want them, leaving this group in a demographic void where standard labels never seemed to fit. Traditional demographic models and marketing categories failed to account for this cohort's specific outlook. For years, the personality quizzes and cultural descriptions meant to define them felt like they were describing someone else entirely. In 2014, an article by Sarah Stankorb introduced a name for this gap, Zennial. While it lacked immediate academic validation, the term provided a sudden, massive sense of recognition for millions who finally had a word for their identity. This specific psychological condition is the result of a unique transition. These individuals reached a critical stage of brain development exactly as the world moved from analog to digital, creating a cohort with a very specific mental architecture. In psychology, bicultural identity describes people living between two cultures. Research shows moving between different rules creates high mental flexibility. This logic applies to Zennials, but their biculturalism is based on time. They are temporal immigrants, moving from a pre-internet world into a digital one. To understand this group, researchers must view them as temporal bilinguals. They possess the rare capacity to navigate two incompatible logical systems with equal fluency. The first language of this generation was built on genuine boredom. You spent Sunday afternoons staring at the ceiling, watching a microwave clock tick from 2:47 to 2:48, with no device to pacify the silence. This taught your brain to tolerate discomfort and create its own entertainment. This era also provided an undocumented adolescence. Every bad decision at 17 or regrettable relationship at 22 left no permanent searchable record. These mistakes exist only in memory, not on a server for a future employer to find. Research by Elizabeth Loftus shows that human memory is reconstructive. It is a fluid interpretation that changes as we grow. Because their pasts weren't tracked by data, Zennials were the final generation whose memories were allowed to function the way biology intended. This allowed them to let their pasts change shape and their embarrassments fade naturally. It established a psychological baseline that is entirely distinct from the experience of younger, digitally tracked generations. The shift into the digital world happened with startling speed. In 1995, only 14% of American adults had internet access. By 2005, that number had reached 68%. Within one decade, the basic mechanics of how a society communicated were rewritten. This transition hit Zennials during a critical biological window. Research by Jay Diad at the National Institutes of Health established that the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for adaptability and new mental frameworks, is still developing into your late 20s. Zennials were in the middle of this maturation process when the digital rupture occurred. Their brains were plastic enough to absorb new digital systems natively, yet old enough to carry a permanent memory of the analog logic that came before. This specific neurological timing wired their brains differently. They became a generation capable of holding two separate ways of living in their habits and bodies simultaneously. As they entered the workforce, this group was met with a double hit of economic instability. Many started their careers just as the dot-com bubble collapsed. This was followed shortly by the 2008 financial crisis. Economist Lisa Kahn has found that entering the job market during such a downturn can suppress earnings trajectories for a decade or more, altering a person's baseline sense of security. This combination of technological and economic upheaval created a permanent internal weather system. It manifests as a low hum of contingency planning that remains active even when life is stable and the rent is covered. The bicultural framework confirms that navigating two different worlds creates mental flexibility. A large-scale review of 83 studies found that this duality leads to higher cognitive adaptability rather than confusion. You see this in how Zennials use technology. They can master complex new software without a single tutorial, yet they can also disconnect from their phones for an entire afternoon and be perfectly fine. They carry an innate understanding of analog reliability. They remember an era where canceling plans meant calling someone's home phone and hoping they were there, a high-friction process that built a different kind of personal accountability. Both logical systems coexist in this group without friction. They are as comfortable with the first version of Google Maps as they are with the paper maps that preceded it. This demographic represents a historical anomaly. They matured during a unique transition in human development that remains largely unexamined in broader cultural conversations. Most people alive today either cannot remember the world before the internet or cannot fully grasp the logic of the world after it. Zennials are the only group that remembers both. They hold both realities within their bodies. They are the final representatives of a world that functioned without digital permanence, serving as a rare link between two different ways of being human. They are the living bridge between two distinct eras. By carrying the logic of the analog past into a digital future, they validate a unique historical experience that will never happen again.